giving us this opportunity to sit with you in your home and have this discussion. On behalf of my team and the Chronicles of a Professional, we want to thank you for this opportunity.
You're welcome, and welcome to our home. We're glad to have you here.
Thank you. I would like to start by asking you, who is Mr. Collins Ndukwe?
Thank you for that question. I think professionally, Collins Ndukwe is currently a senior program manager with Google. I'm based out of the Seattle, Washington campus, where as a senior program manager, I lead cross-functional teams, which sometimes will include software engineers, UX engineers, UX designers, and sometimes we'll also cross through finance and legal to build digital products for internal Google use. And before joining Google, I was a general manager for ICSL, where we predominantly focused on building network solutions for financial institutions, including all the leading banks in Nigeria and the Lagos state government.
Wow, excellent. I did a little research about you, and I must say that I'm wowed. And I'm just going to kind of make it a high level, because if I start putting all of them, I'm not sure we're going to have enough time to do that. But I see here that you had your bachelor's with Enugu State University of Science and Technology, and you have a master's of business administration from Robert Gordon University, and you have Stanford Certificate Program Manager from Stanford University, and you have a certificate in Mastering Design Thinking from Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and you have Product Management Certificate from Cornell University. You have Software Product Management Specialization from University of Alberta. You have you have Senior Program Management Program from Lagos Business School, Pan-African University, and you also had Diploma Information Technology from United States Telecommunication Institute, Washington, D.C. Mr. Collins, if I'm to describe all these your professional qualifications as a building, I would describe it as a monumental piece of architectural excellence.
That's very generous.
Honestly, I would like to know, were you born into, were your parents billionaires that made you to achieve all these great qualifications? Because oftentimes our younger ones, when they look at somebody like you, all they see is the success. Unknown to them that behind this success are years of commitment, hard work, challenges daring. And today we're celebrating you, reading out all these qualifications. Talk to me, what were your humble beginnings like?
Well, thank you. And honestly, this is the first time anyone has ever read that to me. And I've totally myself even forgotten about most of the certifications. But to your questions, no. I think I was born into a very humble home, both of my parents, none with any formal education. Both my mom and my dad barely went through elementary school, as they called them those days. But for some weird reason, which I still don't understand, believe that all their kids will get education. I was also born in Benue State, a remote part of it where 90% or 95% everybody around us were either farmers, traders, and a very little, pocket of civil servants. So there wasn't even an inspiration of what a successful career could look like. But for some reason, they wanted us to, get formal education. It used to be my dad's dream, in blessed memory now, that we all attend university education at a minimum. So when I finished my primary and secondary school here, and it was time to get to university, I got into Enugu State University. It was a tough struggle. Never had not a trust fund kid or anything. I did all sort of things, from being a house agent to selling rugs to selling computers at some point. Everything to when I learned some skills, software engineering, I started monetizing those skills. Just whatever it took just to make ends meet. And I practically saw myself through college. And like they say, the rest is history. So to God be the glory to where we are today.
Wow, that's I must say that when the younger ones listening to you, looking at you, you are a kind of source of inspiration in terms of your success today and all the journey daring. And there is something going on in our society, like I mentioned earlier, where a lot of younger ones, they only see success. And when you look at successful people, both in their professional endeavor and other areas, we only see that success. But we know, like you mentioned, your humble beginning, and look at where you are today. I mean, looking back, how do all these achievements make you feel?
Well, I think if I can encapsulate all of this in one word, I say gratitude, right? Because I think I've always dreamt to be successful, and again, this is a whole different topic about what successful means. But I think that I've exceeded my own expectation, and I give glory to God and gratitude for the opportunities that have been presented to me, but also for making the critical decisions at the critical moments of my life. I'm a firm believer that we make decisions and decisions make us. So, as a human being, we're a summation of all the critical decisions we've made in our lives, because I believe that the grace of God is universal upon us all. That it's the critical decisions you make at the critical times of your life. So, in my own case, for example, the decision not to become a trader. Not that being a trader it's wrong. There's nothing wrong with that. There are successful traders everywhere in the world. But to go get a university education, and the decision to study computer science, and the decision, to work hard, study hard, make sure I graduated, even though I was going through a lot of financial challenges, but doing all of those things to see my way through school, that was a critical, moment of my career too. The decision to acquire skills, additional skills, knowing that my degree wasn't enough at that point. The decision on, when I went for youth service, it's 1 year, which a lot of people take to be a fun time. But for me, it was the time I enrolled myself into the first Cisco Regional Academy in Nigeria, which was situated inside of Unijust. And looking back now, I think that was a defining moment in my life and in my career. Being that before NYSC would end, I was already a Cisco certified professional. And in those days, that was, a meal ticket, so to say, in the networking industry. And I think that helped ease my transition into the career world. And like you were just listing some of those certifications, I believe that I'm a lifelong learner, and that we learn to lead. And that one thing that would differentiate me is just making sure that my skills are up to date and my abilities are up to date, that I'm in tune with what is happening in the industry. So I think, in a nutshell, again, gratitude. I'm really grateful for where I am now, and I attribute it partly to God's grace upon my life and the opportunities that He has provided for me, and partly to, which is the smaller part of it, my little effort and my contribution and making the right decisions and working hard and not giving up. Like my story into Google is one that, if we have the time, we should touch, because it wasn't a straight path for me also. So, but just my little part of not giving up, grinding, being resilient, even in the face of adversity and challenges, just refusing to quit, refusing when I fail, refusing to stay there, but stand up and just keep striving. Like they say, half of life is just showing up, and every morning I wake up and I try to show up.
Fantastic. So the other piece is, like I mentioned again, younger ones listening, getting inspired, you're nailing it and everything. What message do you have for a lot of younger ones who probably listening to this podcast would be seeing you as a role model, wanting to go through the same path that you've been through, or those struggling, thinking, oh, education is a scam, I'm going to give up? When I read through your profile, to me, it was more like a handout. It's no longer a one-page, two-page thing. So what message do you have for these younger ones?
That's a great question, and one that I want to give a little bit of thought to, because I do believe that life is lived forward but understood backward, which is, and that's why there's a lot of wisdom in experience, right? And this is why there's nobody who is living on planet Earth who hasn't said, if I know what I knew now, then I would have made better decisions. Because when we look at life in hindsight and backward, there, we, knowing what we know now, if we were to go back, we will make better decisions, smarter decisions. All the failures we would convert to success and all of that. So to any young person who is starting up, I think there's no one size fits all, right? And I think every person's path will be different depending. But I would say, maybe if I can put it in this, I'll say first, you need to dream big, but set clear goals.
Yeah.
So there's, to your point, one thing that I'm seeing now is people are dreaming big, but refusing to start small. It's usually you dream big, but you start small and you take continuous steps, right? You need to dream of the kind of life you want for your career, but you now need to set both short-term and long-term path, right? So for me, I knew I wanted to be in the tech industry in that first part. And what it meant is building the required skill sets that is marketable in the tech industry. When I was starting out my career in 2008, 2009, network engineering was a hot thing in Nigeria where I started. And I keyed into that, right? But learning, writing all the certifications all the way to CCIE written, that made me marketable in the market. I was getting multiple offers from banks and telcos alike. So I would say dream big, but start small and set class. Have a clearly defined goals of what you want for your career. 2, continuous learning. You never stop, right? The thing is, one thing I do every year is I conduct a skill audit. And I will encourage any young person who is starting now, whether you've started out or you're just starting it. LinkedIn has this wonderful report that they produce every year, which they call the top in-demand skills. Every year, I look at that at the end of the year, and I start asking myself, what are the in-demand skills that I lack? Which ones do I currently have that I can amplify and even make better? And which new skills do I need to gain to remain relevant in the industry? As you know, the tech industry is a very fast-paced industry. And like they say, what got you here won't get you there, right? A lot of my Cisco certifications are no longer relevant like they were for me like 10, 15 years ago. The third one is network effectively. Like you said, that your network determines your net worth, right? Even in just looking at it is build a rich network and community of people in the industry that you aspire to belong to. So if you're a young professional who wants to be in banking and finance, you should be building that community. There should be a community that sharpens you. And what that does is that it gives you a 2-step opportunity where you are drawing from people in terms of mentorship, but you're also feeding younger ones. And I think that's one of the fastest way to learn and get yourself grounded. But the last one, I think this is probably going to be the most important, in my opinion, is be a problem solver. In my career, I have seen people who have master degrees in quote now in articulating what the problem is. There are people who can tell you what the problem is, how big and how complex it is. But when it comes to solving it, there are very few people who actually want to solve problems, right? And looking back in my career, every leader wants people who can solve problems. It doesn't matter whether you're a president, a governor, a CEO of a bank, or just an MD of a mom and pop shop. You want problem solvers. So people who can think critically outside the box. When there's a problem, they're not thinking defeat, but they're seeing it as opportunity and solution. I feel like based on all the feedback that I've gotten to all the managers I've worked with and my peers, I feel that that's one of the most differentiating factors that have propelled my career. It is, I am never afraid of jumping into the hot water. I'm never afraid of being thrown into the deep end for and half of the times I don't have a clue of what it would take, but I have the right, I walk in with the right mindset and the right attitude. So I think just to summarize this again is just, I think you need to dream big, but set clearly defined goals and start small and work your way up. That's number one. Continuous learning. You can't compromise that, right? Your degree is not enough. Sorry. Degree is just your base point. It doesn't matter whether you have a master's or whatever. It doesn't. It doesn't care. I don't care what university you went to. It's a starting point. But you need to now start asking yourself, what are the in-demand skills? And those are two different things that the industry wants. The third one is networking. You should take that very, very importantly. And the last one is be a problem solver. I think that's how, if I were to give this advice to my younger self or to anyone who is starting out, this is how I will deliver.
Excellent. Thank you. I would like to, put this background that I read all the certifications and everything. And I just want to say that it is not just the certifications, because there is a saying that says that certificates in the concept of certification, it is only the content that is certified. Now, putting that into this our discussion, you've excelled in your career as a senior program manager with a blue chip company, Google. So walk me through your journey towards, your career as a senior program manager with Google.
Okay, so not a straight path. So this was around, if I'm not mistaken, 2012, 2013. Google was just new. I was happy with my job. But let me even rewind that a little bit. I got out of NYC, got very lucky, and got a job with ICSL. It's Omni Slumbridge, is a networking company based in Lagos, Nigeria. Within the first 4 years of my career, I rose from an engineer to a manager and a general manager. So that's fast track growth in the industry. At a point when I would show up for meetings of general managers within the telecommunication and networking industry in Nigeria, I think I was the youngest. So few years after that, Google got into Nigeria and we're trying to solve the problem of why isn't there enough people online in Nigeria? And they traced it down to the cost of bandwidth, and that is internet bandwidth being very high. At that point, the benchmark we used was that the average household income, that the internet costs 2% of the average household income in Nigeria. And the goal was to get it down. And Google wanted to hire, people who understood the industry to tailor a solution, not just who understand the technical side, but people who also understood the business side. Yeah. Fast track, I was just online one day playing, I saw this advert. It never really occurred to me that people worked at Google, to be honest. I knew there was a search engine that existed. I had used it. I said, okay, what does it take to apply? Luckily, all you needed to send was just a CV, which I did. So there was no lengthy form, because I'm sure if it was a very lengthy form, I wouldn't have. I submitted it, and 2 weeks later had in Nigeria then, I think 1,000 people applied for that role. Wow. Yeah, it was drilled down to 100 that did this phone screen interview. That drilled down to 10 who were now invited for the proper interview. I had a 5 hours interview at the Google office in Ikoyi, 1 hour per person, speaking to 5 people. And all 5 had to say yes. At the end of the interview, that was my first time, also coincidentally, 2011, of visiting America. So I left the interview and went straight to the airport from the office. 2 weeks later, I heard that the interview didn't go through. I was devastated, obviously, because I had high hopes, feeling that everything went well. But, it took me 1 or 2 days to feel sorry for myself for going through all the lengthy preparation and all of this. But coincidentally, I knew one or two people also who were like very senior colleagues in the industry. Then one of them was a CTO of a company called One as of then, and the other one worked for another very known company in Nigeria called Swift. I reached out to both of them and they said they got the same information. And I made further inquiries and understood that no one passed the interview just because of the interview system, right? So it's not where you select the best candidate, it is where all the interviewers have to say yes for you to get the job. I reached out to the recruiter and I said, got your message, thank you. I know I didn't get it, but I want to get a feedback on exactly what went wrong. She said, oh, we usually don't get this kind of request. I don't know if I can share that, but give me a couple of days. And she came back graciously and told me that my technical skills were very strong, but my project management skills were lacking. And that was why I didn't get the job. And I took that as feedback because I've always believed that feedback is a gift. And whenever you get it, you should use it. I lived in Ajad at the time. I started looking for project management trainings near me. Not like anyone promised me a job, right? Like I just said, okay, I've been managing projects, but never had any formal training in project management. Maybe this is an opportunity to go do this. I enrolled into J.K. Michael's somewhere in Ikeja. Yeah. Every Saturday I would drive, you know.
That was very popular then.
Yeah, J.K. Michael was very popular then. Every Saturday and Sunday I would drive all the way from Ajad to Ikeja to do these trainings. And I learned a lot, you know, and went ahead, completed, did their certifications, passed. 6 months down the line, one morning, I just woke up and I got another email from Google. Now from the hiring managers at then directly. He said, yeah, you went through the interview, nobody passed, but I really enjoyed talking to you and I loved your perspective of how you think the problem of bandwidth will be solved in Nigeria. I want to offer you a contract position of 9 to 11 months. And I said, then after then, what happens? He says, nothing. You go back to your life. Which was kind of like, scary, which was scary.
Exactly.
I was newly married with a child. I was a general manager in a company that was where the CEO was promising to make me the youngest CTO in the industry. So it felt a little bit weird, right? That I would even consider that opportunity. But something in my spirit was awoken. Even though in the physical, everything was saying, don't do this. He said, you just need to do a few rounds of interview, which I did. And they offered me a job. Funny enough, when the job came, the letter wasn't even on Google's letterhead. They used the recruitment agency here. And in that letter, there were 39 mentions of termination in the letter. So it's like, if you don't perform, we'll terminate. If you perform and we still don't want the project, we'll terminate. If the project moves on and doesn't move on, we can terminate. I showed this to my mentor at the point, the first triple CCIE in Nigeria. And he says, the only thing these guys are promising you is termination. Like, why would you want to do this? Like, it makes no sense to me. All my friends kicked against it. And this is meaningfully well. This is what people looking out for me, right? Because they said, this is just too risky. Why would you leave something that is stable and go for a 9 to 12 months opportunity? We have never seen any employment letter with this mention of termination ever. So what? But you know, something was dragging me. I spoke to my pastor, Pastor K, Dominions TVI, which I used to attend.
I want to say shout out to him.
But shout out to Pastor K, obviously, who is coincidentally the guy who gave me my first shot in my career also and hired me in my first job. And he said, give me a few days. Let me take this in the spiritual dimension. And I know for your audience who are not very spiritual now, I know this is getting off topic, but I promise I'll tie the story somewhere. It's getting somewhere. And a couple of days, you know, I did pray about it also. I had peace in my spirit that was the right thing to do. But on the physical, it didn't look like it was the right thing to do. He came on board. I had to also convince my wife, who just had a new baby. and because I needed her on board too. Long story short, I took the 9 to 12 months contract. But when I got there, and going back to this whole problem solving ability, there was a lady who has been trying to provide bandwidth services to universities in Nigeria. And she was trying to negotiate this deal. This is not my project. I was sitting in the office one day and she was talking about it, and I volunteered to help. So in Google, there's something called a 20% project, which is where you can use 20% of your time to work on any other project that you feel passionate and connected to. So I had my main contract job and I was helping this lady out 20%. 4 months into my project, the project was canceled, which means I was jobless. So the termination promise came to pass. Then this lady says, I will keep you for 2 months. I have a budget. You've been volunteering here. I like what you're doing. 2 more months of your time, which will be paid from my budget to keep you to finish this. I jumped on that 2 months project. Before I finish it, a headcount opened up to hire someone permanently in Nigeria. You can see how the story it's coming together. Yeah. But this time around, a few things were different. I had gone to get my project management training, which was totally unrelated. Nobody promised me that. I was also have spent about 4 months plus within Google. I understood the language and the trade. So the same 5 hours interview was presented, but this time it was much, much easier. My project management skills was there, and I already had the opportunity to understand the language of the trade. And long story short, this is my 12th year at Google. So that 9 months promise
with 30 what's mentioned
of termination is still running till today.
Wow.
Through the same, and like God has done a lot of amazing things through the same company. 2016, after about 4 or 5 years here of me leading a project in Nigeria, my role got expanded to a regional role. I was doing projects in Ghana, Uganda, Kenya, and Liberia was the last place I started. In 2016, Google moved me from here to the United States. Through that process, procured a green card for me. And just last month, I became a citizen.
Wow.
All with this journey that started uncertainty. I think the few lessons I've learned from that journey. One is that the journey of life is not always a straight path.
Absolutely.
And sometimes the way we want a blessing to come, it's not how it's packaged and delivered to us. You need to be able to see and hear beyond the noise. And you can't live your life on popular opinion. There is a time where you separate yourself and start speaking to your inner man to draw strength from what God's plan and purpose is for your life at that point. If I had listened to people who I really trusted and who were like advisors to me in my career then, they were all saying no. And they meant well for me. These were people trying to protect me. So there are also people in your life who will be trying to protect you, but will lead you to a path where you miss your destiny. Not intentionally. They're nice people trying to look out for you. So the first lesson I learned from there is that there are times in your life where you separate yourself from the noise and hear what the spirit man is saying. 2, the journey of life, like I said, is not a straight path. 3, adversity and difficulties will come in the way.
They're part of life.
They're part of life. 4 is going back to this concept of being a problem solver, wherever you find yourself. Because I keep imagining, if I didn't volunteer to help out a lady who had a project, who ended up keeping me for 2 months, probably that opportunity wouldn't have been presented to me. It would have been thrown open back into the wider market, right? But because I was there at the time that headcount opened, the general consensus was he's already here, he's doing the job, we should give him the first shot. If he doesn't get it, then we open it to the public, which made a lot of sense. So that's kind of like, that story of, 9 months contract, 12 years plus, still going strong. And again, looking back, it's all gratitude.
Oh my goodness. Listening to you, I think it's quite inspirational. I'm pretty sure that a lot of younger ones will be super inspired by your story, to be honest. Thank you very much for sharing this. Now, as we wrap up, are there other things that you would like to share that I haven't actually touched on that you want to mention to our audience before we get to the part where we ask some personal?
I think we pretty much touched on like my career journey. For in terms of someone who is just starting out today, I would say if the tech industry is where you want to be, I think it's a great industry to be in. Um, it is also an industry where you have to choose a path, because when people talk about the tech industry, they think about software engineering. There's way more people who are not software engineers working in tech companies than people who are software engineers working on tech in tech companies. Is choose your path, focus on that path, and go as deep as you can. At the starting point, you want to build strong technical expertise, and I think at that point is it's okay to be a little bit jack of all trade, just trying to understand your field. So, for example, if you're trying to get into UX, it's okay to be a little bit of a US designer and a US writer and a technical writer when you're starting. But as you start progressing into mid-level career, that's where specialization comes in. And so you want to choose one area and start focusing and going deeper and deeper into that, because that's what's going to earn you that respect. Then the next part of that is to start developing your leadership and your people management skills, right? Because that's what's going to take you to that next level where you're able to collaborate and work with people effectively. Because at some point, as you grow in your career, your technical skills do not count or weigh as much as they did. Right now in my career, my technical skills probably weigh about 20%. What is keeping me in my role, it's my people management and my leadership skills. So depending on where you are, so if you're trying to start out, go deeper, get one field focus. If you're in mid-level and you're trying to progress to the top senior level, then that's where you need to start adding those leadership and people management skills. And just that way.
There's limit. Yeah, excellent. Thank you very much. So, on the Chronicles of a Professional, we have some personal questions that we ask. We should have played the game, but I'm just going to go straight to those questions. So, the first question I would like to ask is, who is your role model?
Wow. I have a couple actually. Within this context, I think I like, and so different role models for different aspects of my life. So I would say in my professional career life, Kingsley Eze and Okechukwu Eze inspire me a lot. And these are people
So,
who,
shout out to
to
Kingsley
Kingsley
Eze
Eze,
and
popularly
Okechukwu Eze.
known as Sake. He's the MDC of Tennessee Holding. He's a wonderful guy. Whenever I come to Nigeria, I try to at least spend an hour, and it's usually like a business school section and impartation. So, Kingsley, if you ever hear this, thank you for the gift of access. I do appreciate it. And OK has been like a mentor to me. Like I said, he helped to give me my first shot in life, recruited me, and helped, you know, groom me, and was very instrumental in the early formative stages of my career. And I think I still ride on that foundation till today. Um, Moving on along the path, I met one Namdi Abraham. He's a director at Google now, and was my first hiring manager into Google also. I'm just deeply inspired by, him being able to attain such a coveted position. And there's probably less than 0.1% of Black people who are director level in tech industries, right? So there's, depending on which report, there's about 2 to 4% of Black representation in the whole of tech. Then as you go upper and upper in the pyramid, that number starts even shrinking even further. So he inspires me. I do hope to make it to directorship one day, and seeing him do it just makes it even more attainable. Then other aspects of my life that I'm really interested in is also the investing world, right? And I do have a few people who also uh, inspire me there. Brandon, who is a Black African American, who is also my colleague
Namde.
at Google. Then I think I'll probably just keep it at that. Yeah, yeah.
Wow, excellent. So the next question is, what's your best Nigerian food?
Home. The food here is great to start with. Part of the, part of the reason why I always come back whenever I had the chance is to try the food, right?
Yeah,
So
it's
that
important.
that's hard to choose, but I think you can never go wrong with a nicely made jollof rice. You know, like Nigerian jollof rice, I must say, not the Ghanaian one,
Not the
and,
Senegalese.
and that's the second.
You want to shake the table
Yeah,
again.
with chicken and plantain. So yeah, I think it's easy to eat. It's one of my to goes.
Interesting. So if Mr. Collins is not doing the tech thing, solving business problems, what else do you do with
You
your
know,
leisure
I'm
time?
deeply passionate about architectural and interior designs. Like this place was put together by myself. Yeah, and it's something that I really enjoy doing. I think I have some instinctive, talent in that area also. It feels like the ship has sailed. So to your question, if I had made all the money in the world today, don't need to work and could work for free, I probably want to be working in one of the largest interior decoration slash architectural companies in the world, where we just build buildings, furnish buildings, and just make everyday life easier for people. Like I'm very passionate about making spaces very functional, not just beautiful, but livable and functional. And that's what I spend a lot of my free time doing, like watching a lot of like home shows, um, on YouTube, reading a lot of home shows, magazine, architectural digest, and all of that. Yes, it kind of feels like if I ever make it to life again, I probably want to try that.
Wow, that's interesting. So if Mr. Collins is not in Nigeria, Mr. Collins is not in United States, which other country would Mr. Collins like to visit?
Visit or leave?
Visit
Huh.
for leisure.
For leisure, I probably. So one of my happiest places on earth, apart from, I think there's a couple actually. I like Dubai for the magical nature. It feels very superficial, right? And whenever I visit Dubai, there's always something new. But recently, I visited um, Cancun in Mexico,
Yeah,
and
Cancun is
I think
nice.
the vibe is just, where you just come in and you feel like you're on vacation, right? Because especially the kind of resorts they have there is where you walk into the resort, you don't need to come out until the day you're leaving the resort. So um, if there's one place I would like to go back to, I think if I had to choose between Dubai and Cancun, I would definitely go for Cancun in Mexico. I really do like it.
Good to know. Excellent. Okay, and our final question, Mr. Collins. If there is one thing that you have the power to change on earth, what would that one thing be?
That's a tough one because there's a lot of things wrong with the world
Yeah.
today, right?
But just
Yeah,
starting
but
with just one.
yeah, but let's say, yeah, I think when we're in Lagos, and maybe I just put my frame of context with Lagos. It's if I had the power to change one thing, it would be there's countless of human talents, people with potential, but do not have the opportunity. I would want the power to give that opportunity to whoever, especially the youths. There are people who have the
Enormous talent.
enormous talent, but no opportunity to exercise that. They're still living in poverty. They're still living below, you know, any something that will be considered in a good standard of living. But these guys are talented, but just no opportunity. So I would like to be able to create enough jobs where everybody who needs one and has the skills to have one will get one.
Excellent. On this note, Mr. Collins, I would like to once again thank you for this wonderful opportunity. And I'm sure in the future we'll connect again.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.